Welcome to Beyond the Scoreboard, the podcast that takes you inside the huddle, beyond the plays, and into the minds of coaches. I'm Perry Black, and each episode will bring you exclusive interviews with coaches from all levels, sharing their stories, strategies, and lessons they've learned along the way. So pull up a seat, let's get beyond the numbers, beyond the highlights, beyond the scoreboard. Welcome back to episode 9 of Beyond the Scoreboard, brought to you by Alfred Lawn Care. Please reach out to Creighton Alfred for any lawn care needs. Today's guest is Matt Evans of Evans Rankings. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Perry. How are you?
Great. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So, before we get into it, kind of give us your background, kind of what you do everyday life, and just tell us, a couple things about you.
Well, hello. I'm Matt. That's two T's with Matt. I'm 39, married for 8 years. My lovely wife, Lori. We've got a 2-year-old son named Carter. My day job, I'm a paraeducator at Cottonwood Elementary in the Kennewick School District. It's get to mold young minds, and then in the night hours, I do the computers. This little hobby that kind of started a while ago has grown to this amazing thing where now I'm getting to meet some amazing people and getting to hop on and talk with you, Perry. So I'm excited to be here, man. Thanks for giving me the call.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to kind of get some of the backgrounds on the computer rankings and what exactly that entails and what brought you to that and what kind of drawn you to that. So let's kind of start there. Give us kind of a short background of what exactly it is that you do with the rankings and kind of how does it get compiled and all that good stuff.
So it really kind of it started as a predictive sort of a thing. It started out back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I guess officially it started at that point when the Pasco Bulldogs were getting ready to play for the state championship. My mom's a Pasco grad, so we were, it's always a big deal when one of the schools gets to play for the state championship. And I, being a little 14-year-old kid or almost turning 14, was like, oh, I wonder if I could predict who wins this game because that's just kind of how my brain works. And I kind of came up with the really, really simple, archaic, take the last 5 games, take Pasco's scores, then Kentwood's defensive scores, flip it and do that, and then average it. And, it's like, oh, it's going to be 38-27 or whatever, and obviously I don't think that was the case. I know Pasco won the game, but I don't think that was the case. But, it was just from there, it just kind of was like, oh, I wonder how this could, and it was just something, just for the heck of it. And then just kind of found myself bored during the summer and was like, hey, might as well start putting stuff together. And it really started out as just oddball type stuff. Like we're talking like third division American soccer. We're talking major junior hockey, minor league baseball. Just, I've always been kind of that, trying to put eyes on the people who don't get the eyes,
Sure.
And so from there, I just kind of did that for a little bit. And then I started seeing high school sports. And high school sports has always been a big passion of mine. And I started seeing like people like Scorzar back in Vancouver who used to put out his rankings. And I thought, oh, I wonder if I could do something similar to that. And I kind of just started sharing it. And that was 2015, 2016. And here we are today, just continuously growing and trying new things and adding new sports and just keeping the brain active.
That's awesome. So when it comes to ranking teams, how do you officially get the information? Is it mostly just through contacts? Is it just kind of the public sites that most everybody can see, or do you have any more insider information?
My stuff is all numeric based. So everything that I get is all available on Max Preps, WIA, Arbiter, all that stuff. Arbiter has been a godsend since they started using that. That's cut down so much of my time. And also now that WIA has that section of scores, you can go, filter by league and all that stuff. That is just has been amazing. But it's strictly numeric. So it's one of the reasons why you'll see me on Twitter always posting the human rankings as well, because I want people to see, hey, here's what the human test, the human eyes see. Here's what the numerics see. Let's see how they correlate and where maybe the computer sees someone that, numerically is doing well that maybe the eyes haven't really quite found yet. So, yeah, so all of my stuff is available on, on whatever the sites you find your scores on.
Yeah. And so when you first started, is it the same formula for getting whatever percentage, or how has that kind of evolved or not?
It's evolving constantly. For football, it's very similar to how it was when it started. When it started, I tried to do similar to like baseball with like the WRC plus, where it's like league average is 100. And then based off of that, if you're better than league average, you're here or whatever. So I kind of started trying to do it as like, 50% was zero. And then, if you were above, obviously you were positive, and then you were negative if you're below, kind of similar to how Max Preps does it. But it just kind of, I didn't really like how poorly the losses affected the ranking. It was too significant for me. And
Sure.
I wanted to turn it into more of a percentage based thing. So it kind of evolved to, did you win the game? Okay, you get percentage of one. Did you, how many of the points did you score? Did you score, if it was like 35-7, take the number you scored, divide it by the total number, take 30% of that or whatever. That's part of it. How strong was the team that you played? Put that in there. And so that was kind of the next evolution. And I use football similar to that. It's kind of, there's a little variation on that, but I've taken another step since then in basketball, baseball, and softball specifically, where now I have totally scrapped the points percentage. So it doesn't matter if you win by 1 or 35.
Yeah.
Now every win is a win, every loss is a loss. You still get credited for, your win. It's a percentage, but now the game ranking itself is, if you win, you get like the full value of your opponent. So if you beat a opponent who's 9-1, you're gonna get 900, point 0.9 points. If let's say you lose to a team that's, like 9-1 or whatever, you're gonna get half of that. And so it's kind of, so now it's becoming more of I'm taking all of those game rankings, adding them together, and then we're averaging that. But now I'm also including kind of like a league strength component, also factoring in tiers, postseason success, like coming into the season, postseason success, for basketball, Metro League boys, dominant,
Yeah.
and so they're going to have a little bit more of a boost because of that postseason success. Because I mean, the fifth place team from the Metro League is still really good, and
Right.
so
Yeah.
you need to show that, you try to factor in that in some way. So that's kind of where that one's going now. And like you said, how is it evolving? It is constantly evolving during the season. I'm like taking notes and like, hey, maybe I should check this, maybe I should check this. And in the summertime, I'll do a complete season simulation again. If I'm looking at football going, I'm not really sure how I like that, I want to change that, I'll literally go through, rebuild the database or copy the database, and then go week by week with the new formula and go, okay, here's how this would have looked. Here's how this would have looked. And then you get to like week 6, and I'm like, okay, how would playoffs project, here? Then go through, do it, get to week 9, see how the new one compares to the old one, compares to what actually happened, and then see, okay, how is this better, worse, or a push? And that's kind of that's the off season for me. It's
Right.
just kind of, it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but I feel like, as opposed to the RPI, which we know what the formula is, or the max preps, which is always going to be the same way or whatever, with mine, I'm always wanting to make it the best that it can be, even if it's me admitting, hey, I was way off on this.
Well, and just to give the listeners a little bit of background. So when let's talk about high school sports. Just obviously, I have a little bit more of a skin in the game in those. When it comes to the playoff systems now, and at least in the state of Washington, the vast majority of that is going to be ranked based on some sort of formula. And obviously, getting as many different quote unquote numerical opinions on that is probably better than going off of one. So, once we get to a state in baseball, basketball, football, whatever, doesn't really matter what sport, there's got to be a commonality at some point to where like I need to do this and this to be able to improve my ranking the following year or the year after that or whatever. And I think that's what the RPI is why that's one of the reasons it's so frustrating for coaches is so I go out and I schedule what I think is going to be a tougher schedule because you care about opponent's percentage and then opponent's winning percentage, and now all of a sudden five of those guys transferred and they're bad. What do I do now? And so I think because we put so much on seating committees and rankings and stuff like that, there's got to be some sort of formula that the state, or we're talking about Washington State right now, there's got to be a way that we can use classifications, how classifications need to matter. You need to be able to somehow justify different states. That's getting ridiculous.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we live closer to Idaho than anything in my area. I mean, it's literally a 3-minute drive to Idaho. We're going to be playing Idaho teams. And it's been kind of a shame because some rivalries have kind of went away because Washington teams don't want to play Idaho because of the formula that it gives you in RPI, even though I don't think RPI is that important at the moment. But it does, some of those analytical coaches really get kind of stressed out about that. So it's like I don't know. There's got to be a way that, you know, we beat a pretty good 2A baseball team in Pullman. That can't be the same as a 12-6 team from the 2B. It just can't be. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on how could that be worked through.
Yeah, that's a great question. Like I love this because there's a lot of ways we can go with this. First of all, with the RPI, yes. Let's just touch first on the out of state stuff. The fact that the out of state games are not tabulated with the RPI right now is not, it doesn't benefit anybody. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody already kind of poo-poos the RPI, but now it really is worthless. It
Yeah.
really is if we're talking about it, because you look at a team like in baseball per se. Let's take like Union 4A from Vancouver. They've got what, 8 out of state games.
Yeah.
I think 7 of those were losses, but there were times that they're still in the top 10 because the RPI thought that they were 4-0 or 3-1.
Right.
When in reality they're 6-7 or whatever.
Yeah,
And so I mean, it's just kind of if it's, and the thing is I don't want to sound like a broken record, like just going off on the RPI, because I'm glad that the WIA is putting this out there. I'm glad that they're making the effort for it.
yeah, me
But
too.
it's a thing where if we're gonna slap our name on it, we should make it the best product it is. And I think that there are ways to, I mean, in all honesty, like I'm here. If you want somebody to tabulate the out of state stuff, I'm doing it already,
Yeah.
So, and then like when it comes to like the tabulation of the RPI, the fact that like there's the reason why the RPI itself, just, and not even just the WIAs, but RPI in general, the reason why it's so antiquated now is because there's so much of it is based on not your schedule. It's based on the teams that you schedule. So you are getting docked points because you scheduled Colfax, but Colfax decided, oh, we're just going to play a cupcake schedule this year, and it negatively affects you. It's just, so
Yeah.
there's got to be a way to, if we're going to continue with the RPI, we need to adjust it. We need to figure out how we want to make it our own. And then, oh my gosh, can't remember the last part. Oh, what was the last part? Oh my gosh, can't remember the third part of the question.
Well, I think the only part you haven't really
how,
asked, yeah, howdy, yeah.
yes, yeah. How do we do that? I think that we're there's lots of momentum from what I'm hearing about trying to make it so that we shift how teams make state. And by that, I mean, we're not looking at, a 16-team tournament where we know 2A District 1 gets 2 bids and District 2, I think we're starting to see momentum gained on maybe each district champion gets a bid, and then we figure out at larges and we do it that way. I don't know how long it's going to take for us to get there. I think that, we need to, I don't think we have enough computer rankings or numeric rankings to do how we should. I think that we do have some, but we need some more so that we can possibly, go with the old BCS model where it was you had your 6 computers, you drop the highest ranking, drop the lowest ranking, take the average of those. I think that's kind of where we need to be, is we need to have something more than that. But then at the end of the day, it can't be all the computer rankings. I am the first person, I will, if they ever come out and they say that we are going with computers to see the state tournament, even though I will be the biggest beneficiary of that. I will bang the drum against it because there has to be a human element. There are so many times when I am putting together my rankings on a Saturday or a Sunday, and I'm looking at football or baseball, and I'm looking at a team, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Riverview just swept Columbia Burbank, and Columbia Burbank is ranked higher than Riverview. And, and I know I'm going to get well, why about this? Why about this? I'm
Yeah,
like, it's
right.
just the computer. There's nothing I can do about it. It's just the computer. But that is the beauty of the seating committees.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the human element, is the fact that they can go, look, they can use common sense and be like, oh, look, Riverview has 2 wins over Columbia Burbank. There you go. We're going to swap them. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's obviously, if we go to a straight computer system, I'm going to be the one that's going to be the big beneficiary. But no, it cannot be just straight computers. It's got to be a mixture of both.
Well, and I even if you go up to the college, the NCAA and college basketball, I'm going to use that as an example just because it's such a large, so many eyes are on that, and they've made it so much money on this whole, you know, veiling of the rankings and stuff. Now it's just a money grab. See how many viewers you can get on each network. I think it's just ridiculous that you have metrics, and I think the RPI kind of goes along with this. Was we have a metric that we're told to try and improve that metric as much as possible. Let's just use Gonzaga basketball for example. They improved that metric as much as possible. Unfortunately, the teams that they did go out and schedule and beat didn't fare so well, or as well as ones might have thought, but the metric still had them high, and then you get a mid-level seed. If I was, Mark Few, for example, or any other coach, I've been like, well, what is the purpose of why don't I just go and beat the crap out of everybody and get a 2 like I used to? And I think we're kind of in the same boat with why in the world are we going out and trying in high school, if you know you're going to be good enough to get a state berth, why wouldn't you just have the record be the best possible? And I think if we're going down that hole, I think that's a really bad hole to go down, because
100%.
I can tell you the best way to do it is schedule a classification down, schedule above average teams, classification down, beat them, and then watch them win everything else, and then have a crazy high opponent's winning percentage. Like, I mean, that's the way to do it. If you really wanted to win the RPI battle, that'd be the way to do it.
100%. And I just remember the last part of that other question. It was playing against other
Yeah,
classifications.
classifications. Yeah.
That is something I've tried. I'm not and I think I've found something that I like. The problem that I have with it is multi-classification leagues, specifically down here, the Mid Columbia Conference. We've got 5 4A teams, we've got 4 3A teams. So, it's disproportionately bringing the 4A teams down, having to play a, 95% filter or a 5% penalty, and then the 3A teams are disproportionately getting bumped up because of their 5% bonus. So that's one of the things. Like, I mean, it's something that I think should be factored in, but it's hard. But I don't know how to do it where it's balanced. And so I have, that is something I've heard a lot about over the last 5 years, and it's something I go through every summer, and I'm like, is this something I want to do this year? And I almost pulled the trigger on it for basketball this year, but I'm still just not 100%. I don't like the results I've gotten so far.
Yeah.
But that is something that I think, that's another thing with the human element, that they can look at the schedule and go, oh, hey, look, here is a 700 percentage 2A team, 2 tiers up. Okay, maybe that's a game that we give a little bit more value to, as opposed to, a 700 2B team or something like that.
Yeah, I think I mean, at some point back in the day when it was just what your record looked like and you didn't really care as long as if you knew what you were going to do. And I guess I want to preface this with, if you know, or you have a good inkling that you're going to be able to get a top 4 seed in your district, or however many that is that goes to the state tournament. In the past, I'm just going to speak on Asotin baseball here, and in the past, we would go out and schedule the biggest, toughest teams around that we could, because we needed to see that level of pitching. We didn't care if we lost or not. And like now, that's kind of like, well, if you're a fringe 3 or 4 seed coming out of our district, and now all of a sudden and it's a 16-team baseball tournament. Now all of a sudden you're the 12th seed, rather than just going and beating everybody up and getting the 4 seed. Like, now you don't got to play. Now you get to pitch. Like, all of it changes it. But we used to just go, let's see if we can find the best pitchers possible to throw it at our guys. And once we get to the state tournament, we'll benefit from that. I don't know if you can have that thought process anymore, which is, as a competitor, is a little bit of an issue. And I'm not saying you can't, but you might, getting a top 4 seed in pretty much every sport. I think baseball might be a little bit more, just because pitching is such an important deal. But getting a top four seed in any of these Washington State tournaments are really, really important. And so being able to find a way to do that, especially if they're going to give buys in baseball, it's just like,
Mm.
whoa. When it was a 12-team tournament last year, we were, and I'm just going to use this as an example of how the rankings can kind of skew things. I can't remember exactly what our ranking was last year, but I think it was an 8 or something, or a 10. I think it was a 10. And we played the 7, but we have one of the top left-handed pitchers in the state. I'm assuming the seating committee knew that, but I don't want to talk too much on them. I know quite a few people on there, so I know that they knew that. I just don't know how much it was conveyed. We literally could have pitched him because it was a 12-team tournament all the way to
Yep.
the semifinal. So if you have one dude, you can get to the semifinal. That's not how sports are supposed to be. I mean, we lost 2-0 to the state champions, so it was close. Like, I mean, we had a legit shot of that happening, but we probably weren't a top 4 team in the state, but we had a top 4 pitcher. It can't all be that. And so that's what I get worried about is the seedings become very important now. Like, it didn't used to matter quite as much when it was like East versus West and then you came together, which I hated, but it didn't
It's
matter
the
quite
same.
as much.
Yep,
Yeah.
same.
It didn't matter quite as much, but now it's like, okay, if I can get a top 4 seed and get a bye and then get to throw my dude 3 times, man, I got a shot.
Well,
Like
the other
that.
thing too, in a 16 team tournament, as a top four seed, you know that you're hosting the super regional. You know
Yeah.
you've got 4, 13, 5, and 12 coming in.
Yeah.
So right there, you're taking up you're not having a long bus ride. You're sleeping in your own bed. You're pitching in your own stadium.
Yeah.
You got your own batter's eye back there.
Yeah.
So it's a huge advantage. And,
Yeah.
and like you said, even with the 12 team tournament, yeah, with that extra bye too, I mean, just
Yeah.
massive advantage. Yeah, it's yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of connections on the baseball seating committees, but I know that's one of the things that I struggle with a lot with my computer rankings with baseball and softball specifically is, there are going to be teams like that have a dominant pitcher and maybe not necessarily the strongest second person, there's a good chance that they're going to be, 9-9 going into state, but they're going to have a state championship caliber pitcher
Yeah.
that skews the rankings down. And so, I mean, it's one of those things where I know that being on the football committees back on the original days of that, I know what we did and the information that we would get. We'd go out for would get ideas for injuries, and if kids got if they transfer whatever was going on, we were in tune with it. But I wonder how much of how much of that plays into the baseball ones too, because it's like you look at a record and you're like, oh, it's a just slightly over 500 record, but their pitcher has is 9-0 with a sub 1 ERA. I mean, what do we do? And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's the. I mean, in all honesty, I would love to, chat off air with us with the committee member. Just obviously, obviously I wouldn't say anything, but I'm curious. I'm very curious talking with other committee members, just kind of be like, hey, what's important to you guys? And that's the other thing I like to do with my rankings is if I hear, hey, we're looking at more strength of schedule or we're looking at more of this, then I can kind of maybe tinker my rankings to be more in line with what they're wanting to see.
Yeah. Well, and I think I can probably say this pretty accurately. I think that the 12-team tournaments and the 16-team tournaments are thought of way differently. In a 16-team tournament, the most stressful day ever as a baseball coach is that regional day every time because who are you going to pitch, when are you going to pitch them, and then you got to win 2 games no matter what. That is in all the sports. Football is pretty close because it's single elimination, so you're going through it. Once you get to the state tournament, you got to win to keep going. I mean, it's similar to that, but that's a really difficult thing. Someone's had the benefit of being in it a lot the last 20 years or so. Probably been in it been in a regional game 14 of the 20 years, I think, something like that. But when it comes to trying to pick who pitches that first game, all depends on your seeding. And so if you're a top 4 seed who gets to host, who doesn't have to throw their number 1 the first game, I mean, that's a pretty big advantage. And so it used to not kind of matter. You could kind of joke and be like, well, all right, this computer says this, or the Max Prep says this. What do they know? Now it's like, okay, we're taking all this into account. Like, it's got to be pretty accurate. Like, that's all. And I love it all. I geek out on it all the time. But it's just really, really important that I think people who are in the game, like that are are watching all of these teams, have some sort of say.
100%.
I think there needs to be like Eastern like subcommittees to some of these, like Eastern and Western subcommittees that kind of like talk amongst each other and give updates and stuff, because nobody's gonna know better than the opposing coaches on what a team is.
100%. I 100%. I would love to see a coaches poll. I would love to see just it's an anonymous coaches poll. Just hey, who do you in your district? Who do you think is the best? And just kind of, so we can can hear from that. I know there's some sports that do that. SB Live does that with basketball, I believe. But yeah, that would be really cool. Or even the committee themselves, maybe after 50 or 60% of the season, they kind of throw out teams to watch, or just not necessarily rank teams, but just kind of, or maybe you could put out, do like the college football playoff does, maybe just put like the top like 8 out, or the top 6 or something. And so we're kind of like, okay, these are the teams we're looking for, and these are kind of the teams that are in the hunt and in the mix. And obviously we don't know who's on the seeding committees anymore. Obviously we used to, we don't know anymore, but so I think that it would be interesting to see that. It would give us all, and especially the coaches, give you guys all a chance to be like, oh, okay, here's who maybe we should be watching, or who maybe we should scout, or whatever. Where do we stack up? And that's another reason why I'm formatting my baseball stuff and softball stuff the way I'm doing it now, having like the top 30 or whatever on one side, going with projected state seeds, and then on the other side going with, okay, the teams that aren't in, where do they match up? Where would they line up? So you can see, okay, right now the 11 seed is a 0.6 or whatever, but the first at-large team, or the team who's not in, would be maybe an 8 if they got in. And just kind of, it's more, I'm doing that because I like seeing that, and I think other people would like seeing that too. So it's something I'm definitely going to be doing for, it's how things are going to be formatted moving forward. And I'm very excited to share that for football and basketball next year. I know one person who's going to be very upset with that, and that'll be your buddy, Jim Holman. He's going to be very, very upset with that, because Jim, last year during football, I started posting more the spreadsheet stuff. Go to the spreadsheet. And I love Jim so much. I'll never say a bad word about Jim. I absolutely love him to death. And I remember getting a message from him that said, please post it on the website. Us old guys need to know where to go. And I was like, I'm on it, dude. I got you.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, and there's not ever an easy way to do all this, and I understand that. And I think, viewers and listeners are intrigued on how this all works, but I don't know if we can solve the problem or kind of create a better system without changing the way you make the playoffs. And so, yes, I think if you win your league and you win the district tournament, you should be in. I think it's similar to college basketball. I think that needs to be, you can't totally take away the district playoffs. I think that would be a problem. And you can't say that let's just use baseball. The 20 games we're playing right now can't not matter. Like Freeman won our league on the South. They should be rewarded for that in some way. I don't know what that exactly looks like, but they should be rewarded for that. And same with Chewelah on the other side. I think it's Chewelah. And then the winner of our district tournament obviously needs to be able to get in, but it would be very difficult for, a coaches poll or even the seating committee to kind of push out rankings, because you have the automatic bids or whatever. What do you call them when the districts get a certain amount of allotments or allocations?
Allocations.
So when there's predetermined allocations set by the state, how are we going to know how many teams, like how far down the list in each district are we going to start ranking teams? Anybody can get upset at any time, but that would be, if it was me, I would do it similar to college basketball, where you get a district tournament championship, a league championship, and then you make it 24 teams in baseball. Or actually, I would not have the district championships. I would have the league champion of each side if it was tiered, or if it was split in half league. The winner of each side would get in, and I'm not sure how many that would be. Let's just say that's one from each one. So what's that automatically?
So you'd have Northwest, you'd have Southwest, you'd have EWAC, Central. Then you guys, I think it's five or six. Let's say it's 5, just one for each league.
Okay, so if it's
let's say maybe division, like in your case now, let's say South Division winner plays North Division winner, like league championship game, end of the season sort of a thing.
And I would do that only in that reason.
Yeah.
Like if you were
Same.
split or if it was tiered or whatever, yeah, you got to find a champion somehow. But then after that, open up the tournament a little bit bigger and let it actually, if you really wanted to find out a true champion in baseball, specifically baseball right now, you would have to have two pitchers all the time because you would have to lose twice. And it would be like every other playoff is in baseball and every other division,
Yeah.
whether it's the NEI World Series, whether it's the college
World. Yep.
College World Series, Division 1 or 2. There's super regionals that are double elimination, and then it's the World Series that's double elimination. So you find out what the actual 10 best teams are by that time.
I like this idea.
And all you would have to do is just take away that week and a half or 10 days that you allot for district tournaments and just make them tournament games instead. You might play a game or two more, but not very many.
And I like this because I know one of the pushbacks that I get when I suggest maybe eliminating a district tournament or something is, well, hey, that's like a big revenue thing. And I understand that. And that's obviously something I would never want to take away. But if league champions are getting in, first of all, I think that they should be protected. So if there are 8 super regionals or whatever, I think that you got to make sure that every league champion's in the top 8. Every league champion's hosting, so every district is getting that gate of however many games it's going to be. That's a prerequisite for me. If it means that, let's say Orcas Island wins District 1 and they're 11-8 or whatever, they have to be guaranteed a top 8. Even if they're not essentially a top 8, then at least they're hosting, but they're going to have to win. So they'll prove that they're, they'll get the gate, but they'll have to prove that they're, whatever. But I really like that idea because yes, you're right. That's pretty much every college baseball tournament is that way, is set up that way. And that's what makes that tournament so much fun is you get these teams that it's not necessarily that you have to, once you lose, you really, your backs are against the wall and you really have to work to get to it. And there are times you get these Cinderella runs, but you also do have more of the cream of the crop going to Omaha and, getting there. And at the end of the day, because there's so much that, you can't just jump up and surprise a team and knock them out.
No, and it's a perfect example of it shows you how good of a team you actually are. In the current setup, if if we were saying defense, pitching, and hitting are the 3 main phases, and you are amazing at pitching, you're at the high school level, you're going to go a long ways for the most part, and that would kind of balance it out a little bit. It wouldn't be perfect, and it would. I think once you did it for a few years, it would allow. But what it does is it allows you to not worry about like 2 losses as much as it does right now, or whatever it is. Like right now, we have a team in our district that's because we can only get 4. There'll be a 5th team that I guarantee you would be very successful in an opening round state game just because they have pitching. And right now they're not going to get a shot at that. And that's a little frustrating, I guess. But I mean, it happens in every sport. But I think it would be so much easier to have more opinions if we got rid of the allocations. For the most part anyway. I think you probably have. There's always going to be some quote unquote bias probably to certain leagues, but most of the time that's pretty warranted.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, essentially what we're doing now is, the system now is we're looking at it and we're going, okay, here are the seeding committees get together and it's here are the 16 teams that are in, seed them, and in that circumstance, now what we can do is we can go, okay, here are your 5 or 6 teams that are in. You have 18 teams that you need to get in, or whatever the math would work out to be. Here, take what look at their schedules, do your homework, look at, they've already done their homework. They come in, very, very prepared. But, here are some analytics. If you need to help break some ties or whatever, let's just take 1 through 24, make sure that we protect these ones here. Bingo, 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 bingo. There we go. I think that it's easier said than done. I do think that there are going to be, in that circumstance, there would be maybe some more cries of, biases or whatever. At the end of the day, a team is really good, a team is really good and they should be rewarded with a higher seed, even if it's perceived that, they're getting pushed up because of, their Rainier Beach basketball or whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're getting pushed up because of success. Right. I mean, and that's I get where people could probably come up with that issue, and in certain instances it might be valid, but I don't know. It'd be tough to to argue having more teams in the tournament. That would be, I
Mm.
mean, saying that that's not equitable would be, I mean, how would that be possible? So, uh, I do, I mean, a perfect example of this is, Chihuahua last year didn't make the state baseball tournament because it was a 12-team tournament because we only got two.
And we were like one team under or something like
Yeah,
that.
so we only got two bids. Chihuahua, I mean, Colfax is in the same boat too. They would have beat a lot of people throughout the state, but Chihuahua for in particular was the number one team in RPI. I think one or two in your pool,
Mm.
in yours, and the eye test certainly was in their favor. And they had one bad day where they lost like 1-0 in the championship game at districts and then lost the seeding game to get there to us. But that team was just as good as any of the top four seeds even in that tournament, and they didn't get to go because of one bad day or really one bad game. It's like, well, you're 19-1 going into the regular season and you have one bad day and now you're not a top 6 or 12 team in the state. No, that's not true. And so you would think that it would alleviate some of those type of circumstances, like, okay, yeah, this team's definitely a 2B at-large baseball tournament team, hands down. So I think it would solve some of that, and then people might not be quite so frustrated. But
Well, I mean, yeah, and a perfect example too, with that is 2A football up in District 1, where you've got Linden, Archbishop Murphy, Anacortes, all three top 10 teams, and there was the year where only two of them were getting in. And
yeah,
it's just like, what are we doing here? And even like, and was it 1A basketball too? And you had like Linden Christian, Nooksack Valley, and I want to say Mount Baker were all really good. There was another
yeah,
really, really good team, Meridian. It was Meridian. I think it was Meridian this year, and they
yeah,
only have two chances to get to state. That it's just there is a better way out there. It's just going to be how do we get there?
yeah,
What's going to be the tipping point to where our state goes, okay, we need to really, this is a serious thing that we really need to take a look at.
yeah,
And I know that there are some people who are pushing for this. I'm one of those people who's pushing for it. It's an easy thing to do. I know that, yeah, I mean, there's never a perfect system, but I think this is the best way that we can do it to make sure that we have, if you're going to showcase the best teams, this is what we need to do.
yeah.
Plain and simple.
And even if you had to make some of those loser out games, so it wasn't a full double elimination the whole time, even if just a portion of it would still be a heck of a lot better than the current system. And guessing and hoping and praying that you get another allocation every year is like, okay, well, I didn't really enjoy it. I mean, the same thing happened a couple years ago. I think maybe 2013, 14, Clarkson boys won the state championship in the 2A, and then I might have this backwards. And then the next 2 years, Pullman won it or whatever. It was something like that. And then the reclassification happened, and the GNL at that point lost a bid. And so now only one of Clarkston, West Valley, or Pullman were going to get to go.
Mm.
They literally had won the last 4 state championships. It's like, okay, how can we look at this and go, yeah, that makes sense? Like,
Yeah, and you look at the Northeast this year where they lost Freeman, Newport, and Deer Park, and they
yeah,
go from a 7-team league to a 4-team league, and now the only way they can even get to state is by gluing with the SCAC and the
yeah,
Caribou Trail.
right,
So I mean, it's at their they don't even their district champion isn't even guaranteed to make it to state.
yeah,
It's I mean it's they have a loser out game just to get to state. So
yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. These the regular season needs to matter. If you win
yeah.
your league, you should be playing at state no matter what.
No matter what. And
No matter what.
there's so many, even just recency bias here. There's so many examples you could give of a team slipping up after having a really good, 8 weeks and having one bad day, and now they can't play anymore. It's just like, and I get it. It's the playoffs and it's hard, and yeah, I get all of that. To trust me, I understand that, but that's ridiculous to expect. Now, maybe when you're dealing with 25-year-old college basketball players that are making $3 million, okay, so maybe you can't have a bad day, but when you're dealing with 14-year-olds and 14 to 17-year-olds, yeah, you're gonna have a bad day. And when you're traveling on a school bus 6 hours in our state, sometimes it's like, yeah, there's gonna be some bad days. Like, that's just gonna happen.
The bus legs, man. It's true thing. The bus
Yeah.
legs are a true thing.
Yeah, yeah. We live in an area where it doesn't matter. I mean, we were hosting a semifinal football game just as close as the team that was
Wow.
not hosting.
In
So-
my backyard.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, okay, so what, they go like 40 minutes further? That's pretty neutral, but whatever.
I was gonna say I thought it was a great venue.
I
I thought it was fantastic.
I like the venue. I just wish it was about 150 miles closer. In that
You know,
instance, in that instance,
exactly in that
yeah,
instance, yeah,
yeah.
it was, yeah.
I kept trying to tell everybody, I'm like, God, we need to. Walla Walla finished their stadium now, so I'm like, man, we just need to
Yes.
beg to play there
Yep.
if that ever happens again. Because yeah, we're still traveling, but that bus ride's a little bit
Oh,
better.
100%. Yeah, that's gonna be a godsend for you guys. I know. I will tell you though, I was so giddy when I saw that you guys were, you guys had won, and I looked at my wife. I'm like, they're gonna play in Richland. They're totally gonna play in
Yeah.
Richland. Like, I'm gonna go. They're totally gonna play in Richland.
Well, our AD talks to me a little bit during about that kind of stuff because Jim's pretty he doesn't like looking ahead at things and is
Yep.
really, really superstitious. So I was like, find any other place other than the Tri-Cities. I want whoever's coming to travel as far as possible. And then we ended up in Tri-Cities. Even though that feels awesome and that stadium's amazing and nothing bad about the venue itself.
Oh no, don't worry. I'm a Hanford grad, so I will say all the bad things about Richmond. No worries. I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I think the other thing you guys didn't really have going for you is, I know with the semifinals they try to pair up, and so we knew Liberty Christian was going to be playing at home, so it was pretty writing was pretty much on the wall that you guys were the next team that was going to be there since there was nobody else that it would have would have fit there. But I know I wish it would have been better for you guys. And
Let's go to Freeman or something. Let's make them go all the way.
yes, seriously.
Because we're still driving. Like, I think that's but anyway, yeah. So, I mean, but those are just examples of how you can't not reward a kid or reward a team for having a year-long success and then basing it on one district day is just
Exactly.
mind-boggling. That doesn't make any sense, especially now that everything has to be neutral or quote unquote neutral because of travel, but it's never neutral. But I would say that basketball probably has the best in that sense because there's just better venues all across the state to play in.
Yep.
Football, the East Side just doesn't have much turf-wise, and so that's part of the problem as well. I mean, it's either the Tri-Cities or Spokane, basically. So it's like
you said, now Walla Walla has their venue there, and I think that's gonna be a suitable option now that they have a turf venue.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Moses Lake is there too, but that's kind of a wonky drive for you guys especially.
Yeah. Well, and we understand it, and we're in the corner of the state, right? So we're going to travel no matter what. But
yeah,
at least for the team that's supposedly hosting should get some sort of it. It can't be the same because that doesn't seem fair. I was actually talking to Scott Parrish, baseball coach at Colfax. We were saying when it comes to like hosting the Final Four, because we're playing the district tournament at Gonzaga University.
Yes.
And but why don't we just get in contact with the universities and have it use 3 of them? So for example, let's just use WSU, Gonzaga, UW. And why don't we have the 1B, 2B play at one of them, the 1A, 2A play at one of them, the 3A, 4A play at one of them, and rotate each year?
%. Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Because it's all turf. All the baseball's done by that time. College baseball will be done at that time. Unless you're like hosting a super regional or something, and you could play it no matter what because of the turf. So it's like, why is 3A or 4A sometimes playing at T-Mobile and the 1B, 2B are playing at some random high school field? Like, you're talking about equitable here. Like, that's not the fair. So I think that's a really good idea. And if you're going to pay somebody, you might as well pay the universities in your state. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I think honestly, I think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, all of the points there. Yes, the baseball season's done unless you're hosting a super regional.
Yeah.
With the minor league stadiums, all here are all pretty much grass. So you're gonna and other than that, you've got you've got Yakima, you've got Tri-Cities, you've got Everett. You've got some great Spokane. You've got some great college venues here. The college venues too have more of an intimate atmosphere too.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? I would love going and watching a state tournament at Husky Ballpark. I mean, it'd be so cool to see, to watch a game and have like Washington in the background. I mean, it's state football for me. This year was really awesome doing that, and you can rotate them as well. Or you can just say, hey, the 3A, 4A is. You got Ellensburg too. Ellensburg being the central part of the state. Central's got a baseball field field.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, it's, I don't know,
Well,
it makes too much sense to,
well,
to
and
for it to be considered.
I think it's important to have these conversations too, because like you would rotate on a 3-year cycle, no matter what. Let's say if you're a West school, every 3 years you're going to get to play it in your backyard,
Yep.
no matter what the conversation is. And then if you're East Side school, no matter what, you get it in your backyard. So it takes away because we played in the Final Four 4 out of 5 years in the 2012 to 17 or whatever, and not one time did
All in
we.
Central.
It was
Yeah.
either Centralia or Ellensburg. What? I mean, we were going through towns to get to Ellensburg on the teams that we were playing, or through
It's
to get to Centralia. We were going through the towns of the teams that we were playing. We're like, this is not
Yeah.
neutral.
And it's perfect too, just geographically for the state. Let's just say we go Seattle, Ellensburg, Spokane.
Yeah,
It's right there. It's north central Washington anyway, so you're not having Bellingham teams having to come all the way down to Pullman, or vice versa.
yeah,
There it's kind of equidistant there. And yeah, if you rotate it every 3 years or so, I mean, you're gonna have, yeah, there's gonna be years where maybe you get four 4A teams, but I mean, the kids get a chance to play at the kids get a chance to play at these college stadiums. The college scouts can come take a look
yeah.
at these guys, and maybe it can open up some more opportunities for them. It's a win-win. It
Well,
really is a win-win.
there's absolutely no reason. No high school kid's gonna get mad if they're traveling, half a day or whatever to play at WSU or Gonzaga. They're gonna be mad if they're traveling half a day to go play at Richland High School. Like, I mean, you know
Yes.
what I'm saying? Just
Yep.
throwing out a name. The field, not talking bad about anybody's field or anything. There's a difference. And I think, especially if you have any sort of aspirations of playing in college, playing on those college
Exactly.
spheres is really cool. And it's such a
Mhm.
simple thing. And you could do it in basketball is very similar to that too. You get so many
Yep.
high level
Mhm.
programs with high level venues that why are we using all these random domes that cost a ton of money? Why don't we get into a facility? I just it's so confusing to me. And I get the multi teams per multiple games per day, and and got to have a venue where you can play 2 games at once for some reason. Somebody hasn't given me a good answer on why that's important, but I'm really willing to listen basketball wise.
And I mean, and two, I would love to go back and revisit because I know there was one year, I can't remember exactly when, but I do know that the Southridge girls made it to state this year where the boys tournament was being played, the 3A tournament was being played at the Key Arena, and
Hmm.
then the girls tournament was being played at Heck Edmondson Pavilion. So I mean, it's possible to do this. I mean, and you look at like the venues that we do have around the state. You could play, let's say Spokane. You've got GU, you've got Eastern. You've
Hmm.
let's say Seattle, you've got UW, you've got UPS. You could have you have
Yeah,
a bunch of the tournaments up there anyway with all of the ones that are there. Travel's not necessarily, I mean, probably not the best thing. I mean, but
yeah.
I mean, it's yeah, I'm with you there. I think that that's one of the next things that I'd like to see is a revamp of the state tournaments for basketball. And in all honesty, I don't mind taking them out of the domes. I just feel like a majority of the state tournament should be played in the gyms. I
Yeah.
think that I would love to see a 32 team kind of double elimination sort of I've kind of have this really weird idea I've thrown out a couple times, but I'd love to see maybe like the top 16 dwindle down to an 8, those 8 make it to state, and then you kind of have loser outs to get the rest of the field completed. But it's you play like Tuesday, the girls play, all the girls games are on Tuesday in the gyms of the home seeds. All the boys games are on Wednesday, and then the girls next round is Friday, Saturday. You alternate it every year, but you're getting a chance for these kids to play meaningful really intense basketball in their home gyms and work towards getting to state where it is, in the dome, and it's not 16, it's 8 or it's 12 or whatever it
Yeah.
is. But no, I mean, I'd it would that would have to be a replacement for a district tournament, but I think that it would be awesome to, similar to baseball. I would want to protect top teams and make sure that the districts are still getting their gates and whatever they possibly could need there to, for the finances to balance the books. But I think it'd be a really cool thing to look into.
Well, and I think that it's all doable too, because our state, yeah, you have to travel quite a ways no matter what. But people say that the state cares about travel, which, maybe they say that, but if they're going to say that the top 4 seeds in baseball this year get to host, they've just told you they don't care about travel, right? I mean, so let's say if Asotin just so happens to get a top 4 seed, can you imagine some of the teams that would be coming basically to Idaho to play thought that we cared about travel, right? I mean, that would make, and I'm speaking against because I would love, trust me, I would love to host, and in our field would people would really love that. It's a pretty cool backdrop and
Yeah.
everything. But does that make the most sense travel wise? No, not at all. So don't tell me that it's about travel when you just said you get to host no matter where you're at. And I can't believe that to be true. I'm still waiting for that to actually happen and then be like, yeah, we're gonna send Nap of mine to Asotin to play a regional. Like I just don't know if that's gonna happen, but I'm curious to see if it does.
Yeah, and the biggest thing, the biggest one for me there is football. If travel was a big deal, if that was a huge deal, we would be doing East versus West again.
Yeah.
We would be, it would go back to the days where it was, where, in where the Big Nine and the GSL would all be in the same side of the bracket and one team would get through, as
Yeah.
opposed to now, which obviously you can tell if you didn't know that we were both from the east side of the state, that being our biggest gripe with state tournaments,
Yeah.
being our age, you definitely could tell if that we're from the east side
Yeah.
just based on that, because we're still very bitter about that over here, even though it's
Yeah.
been what, like over a decade since it's been like that.
Yeah.
It still stings very much.
Yeah, I don't want it to ever go back to that. And the state did a really good job of finding a way to fix that. Which I give them
Absolutely.
kudos there,
Mhm.
100%. But I just think there's too much data that can be pulled and examples that can be pulled from other states, from the NCAA and the way that they handle a lot of their stuff, which is actually pretty smart because they have to deal with way more travel issues than what any high school would have to. So the way they balance all that stuff and the way that they give host sites and the way that the formulas they come up with, who's hosting what and why and how and all that kind of stuff, it just takes some questions on give me this information and see if I can figure it out. And I think that the state would have a better population or a better audience that wouldn't be so frustrated if we were able to at least say, hey, this is why we're doing it, here's the models that we've been using to do it. I just don't know if that's existed, and maybe it does and I just haven't seen them, but there's not really a model like ours in most of the state tournaments. So that's the confusing part. It's impossible to fix it probably, but I think now there's so much data that's available and you can research any United States basketball tournaments now and figure out how they're running it, and I can't imagine that they're running it like this, but maybe. I don't know. I'd like to see that. All right, Matt. Well, before we get, too far into that, what do you anticipate Evans rankings looking like in the future?
That's a really good question. And I find myself thinking about that a lot because, I mean, obviously now life's a lot different from when Evan's ranking started. Now I'm a dad now, and now I'm married and have a very, time consuming job with both job and family. And it's, in all honesty, it's Evans rankings for me is just it's just fun, and that's all I really want it to be. It's, I've had opportunity. I think that there are going to be opportunities where somebody may say, hey, we offer you whatever for this or blah blah blah. I've never made a cent off of it. I never plan to make a cent off of it. I'm my own boss. I can set my own schedule. I can, do my own thing when I want to do it. And it's like I was talking with, doing an interview with Scorebook Live, and, said if I never make a cent off of this in my entire life, I'll be a happy person, and I will, because it's fun. That's all it is. It's all it ever will be. And I think that, I'm kind of starting to, the only changes that I would make, like going forward, or evolutions, I want to do more, bringing more to people. Like I've started doing some Twitter live stuff. I want to do some more video type stuff, just kind of more connecting with the audience that way. I want to do more Q&A type stuff. I want to just let the people talk about what they want to talk about, if, whatever it may be. Eventually, I'd love to maybe do some local broadcasting or something. Maybe just go get like a 2B game, go to like a Tri-Cities prep football game and just do take some video there or whatever, do some audio, who knows, something like that. The one thing that I am working on that is kind of the dream of mine that I've had for a while is like I love doing the hypothetical matchups. So
Mhm.
I love in the off season for football, for basketball, go, oh, I would love to see that team play that team, or I would love to see this and blah blah blah. And so that's kind of why like my goal is to do a in high school basketball holiday invitational down here in the Tri-Cities. There's a lot of really good ones over in the around the state, but with the Tri-Cities, we have so many different schools here. We've got a lot of talent here. We've got a lot of lodging here. We've got a lot of tourism stuff here. There's a lot that we can do here, and I think that it would be really cool to be able to start something small and who knows, maybe make it grow to a, MLK Day sort of a thing, or maybe a 3 day, Curtis Winter Classic sort of a thing,
Sure.
I mean, let's just showcase basketball, showcase sports down here. I'd love to, that's kind of the goal. And I've started looking into that. I've been talking with a couple ADs down here about, getting, just kind of collaborating and, using some of their visions and maybe getting CBC involved and whatever. Just a lot of different ideas. And that's kind of the dream, is just maybe one day an 8-16 team basketball tournament down here. But the first thing we'd have to do there is get basketball to 24 games. It's not going to
Yeah.
happen until that happens.
No.
But until that happens, it's just a dream. But you never know with the assembly committee, or a representative assembly, we may be able to push something through. We'll see.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like that in every sport. I think maybe football has a decent amount of games. I think that's a pretty decent amount, but
Yeah.
every other state plays way more than 20 baseball games, I promise you.
Mhm.
And the fact that you can't work with pitchers before the season starts, and then
Yeah.
we're trying to say that we care about arm care, is like, double-edged sword there. It doesn't make sense. We put out these crazy, which I think are really warranted, pitch counts and pitch limits and stuff, but then we won't let them have an on-ramps time. It's like, well, come on, guys. Like, what are you talking about?
Could you
But
imagine throwing Logan Gilbert on no ramp up
yeah.
opening day?
Yeah, no,
No,
it doesn't
yeah,
happen.
no,
It
it
doesn't
doesn't
happen at
happen. No,
any other level. It doesn't happen.
no,
And yeah, it's not like it's not abused already. The quote unquote rule isn't abused. Like, at least let's just make it so that there's some structure and we're not hiding in
exactly,
closets doing all this. I mean, just,
exactly,
and it doesn't have to be a
exactly.
lot, but a 2 week period. And the whole multi-sport thing is you can still have an on-ramp as a pitcher while you're playing basketball. I promise you. We have
100%.
a perfect
Hmm.
example of a guy that does that by himself. I mean, a potential Division 1 pitcher that played basketball. It's possible, I promise you. So it's like, I'm curious to see how. I can't believe it didn't pass the last time that it was on the amendment docket, but that needs to change quickly. So if the WI ever listens to this, they need to add at least a 2 week on ramp season for pitchers. That just needs to happen, or somebody's going to sue you at some point. Is my guess, but I don't know. Anything else for the good of the order, Matt? Before we let you go.
Gosh, man, just I appreciate you having me on, dude. I was really excited to get to meet up with you at that state semifinal game this year. Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Jim, and he's been great to me since I started becoming a big name, I guess, in the state here. And so yeah, it's great to get to meet you. I love being able to hop onto these and just bring another voice out there, and appreciate what you're doing. And just best of luck to you guys. And hopefully we don't see a Soton in the Tri-Cities for state baseball this year. If we see
Yeah,
it at a regional,
depends on
if we
which one it is.
if
See.
Tri-Cities Prep's hosting and you guys are there, I'll make sure to pop by and come
Yeah,
say hey.
yeah, do it. I gotta say, that was the strangest field. That was one of the last year we played. I can't remember what the venue was. You probably know it, but I thought I was like driving into like like a gated community, and then all of a sudden like this really nice
Oh,
baseball field.
yeah. Did you guys play it? Was at LaPierre?
Oh, maybe yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
high
So,
school.
yep.
It's not on campus, right? It's a high school.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was cool.
that's Kamaikan's home field. Yeah, that's kind of right. It's funny you say the gated community. It's literally right up the road from my work.
Oh, really?
So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I remember the first time I went out to that field, I was like, I don't know where we're going. I don't know where we're going. And the next
Yeah.
thing you know, it's just like, it's like house, 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 house. And then
Yeah.
bam,
Yeah.
awesome baseball field, and you're like, whoa, where did
Yeah,
this thing come from?
I thought the same thing. I drove myself up to that, and I was like, I am not in the right area. Like this is not right. And then all of a sudden, turn the corner. Okay.
Like, oh yeah, there it is. Okay.
Yeah. All right, Matt. Well, I appreciate you having, and good luck to to any sort of future endeavor that Evans Rankings has, and keep
Appreciate
doing
it.
what you're doing. I really enjoy looking at the rankings and following that, especially during football season. It's definitely a fun time. But yeah,
Best.
let's talk soon, and I appreciate you coming on again.
Absolutely, man. You know that I'm always open. Just let me know. Let's do it.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, have a good night, man.
You too.
That's a wrap for this episode of Beyond the Scoreboard. A big thank you to our guests today for sharing their insights, stories, and wisdom from the world of coaching. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us reach more listeners like you who are passionate about the game and the people who make it happen. Follow us on all the socials for updates and behind-the-scenes content. And as always, join us next time as we continue to go beyond the stats, beyond the sidelines, beyond the scoreboard.